Alright, it is time to roll our slab. Now before you do so, make sure you have a plan. Planning is a large part of your grade. So find some inspiration, figure out the shape of your mug, and make your template. You need the template to roll your slab. If you don't have that, you don't know what size slab to roll. And you can see the previous video for how to do that. Make sure you have some fabric. So most of us will be doing just a simple template, taking a piece of printer paper and folding it into a rectangle. Remember, the size of the paper, the size of the template will be the exact size of your mug. So it's going to be as tall as the paper, as wide as the paper. And when your mug's fired, it will shrink a little bit, about 10%. Now here's an example. When I first wanted to make an example mug, I kind of rushed rolling the slab, and I rolled it. I went for this big mug, and I didn't have quite enough clay. I ended up getting the slab too thin, and here's why you don't want to do that. One, you can see it doesn't hold its shape. It doesn't hold up well. So if I want to make it into a mug, it's really, really weak. The other thing is, when I pressed my texture in there, it ended up tearing the slab. Right? So it's really hard to make a mug with that, with a very thin slab. So try not to let that happen. So get a good amount of clay, about a softball size portion of clay, and then we're going to wedge that into a nice solid ball, and that just means pushing it down, pulling it up, and working that clay into a nice solid mass. It's also kind of nice to kind of warm it up and get it ready to be rolled. So squish it with your palms, pull it up, turn it, squish it again. Spend about a minute doing that, and then we're going to slap it into a ball. Cup your hand and really whack it. And we want to get rid of all the creases and cracks so that our slab doesn't have creases and cracks. Now we're working on thin fabric. So once you get it into a ball, squish it into a very thick pancake. We're not going to be able to get it all the way thin, and we don't really want to. We want to roll it thin. Now one of the problems of working on a t-shirt is that when we want the slab to be longer than instead of wider, right? So it's going to be like like a piece of flatbread or something. Right? So don't worry about getting out in all directions. We're focusing on getting it long. It has to be just wide enough to fit the template. Now we want to get the creases out of here. It's a bit of a pain to do this, but it's definitely worth it. So if you have a rolling pin, that would be ideal because it's wide enough that you're not going to leave those marks. You can see the jar leaving marks on the top and bottom of the jar, which is fine. We can work with that. It's just one of the many challenges we have to overcome with doing clay at home. So we're going to roll this slab in many rolls. We're not trying to do it really quickly. We're trying to slowly move that clay. We know if we move clay quickly, what happens? It cracks, it gets weak, it becomes hard to manage. And every once in a while, I'm picking my slab up, I'm flipping it over, and I'm making sure that I get the creases out of my fabric each time. Otherwise, I'm going to get things like that in my slab. Now, it's early in the process, so that will probably just kind of roll out. And if it doesn't, at the end, we can card that out. So take your time, really, really take your time. And you can check with your template to make sure, see how close you are to getting it right. Look at how smooth that is. Beautiful, just beautiful. So we want it to be a 1/4 inch thick, maybe just a touch more than that. We don't want a chunky mug, it's going to be heavy, but You definitely don't want it too thin either. Alright, so we're almost there. Now here's a little, it can be dangerous for some of us. If you're not quite there and you need it to be longer, and your clay's already getting thin, this is where we can get in trouble and get a slab that's too thin. So it might be better, if you can't get it big enough, to add some more clay. Just ball it up again, grab another handful of clay, wedge it all together, and start over. Instead of getting a slab that's too thin, and that's going to give you trouble for the rest of the project. Alright, looks like I got it. Ding, 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 winner. Now we're going to card it smooth. And card in different directions. Remember, we're pushing the grog, the larger bits of clay down, so we're compressing the slab, making it a little bit harder, a little stronger. Get my arm out of the way here eventually. Look at that. That's beautiful. Right, so I got it carded on one side. And because I took the time to get those wrinkles out, look at the bottom side of this slab is perfect. I'm still going to carve that, or card it, sorry. Oh, okay, it was a little thick in one side, so I decided, right, just hide it. It doesn't, if you see a place that's thick, just roll it again. It doesn't take long at all. Look at how, even the carding is moving the clay. It's just beautiful right now. Alright, so I'm super happy with this, but this is like the third slab I've rolled in a week. So you get pretty good at it after a while. And now I got a crease in there. Shoot. But going in different directions. If I can get that out, right? See? Just gently pulling that clay. Alright, so try to get as nice of a slab as you can. Then we put our template on there. And we're going to cut it. So I'm just going to use my card. And take your time again. I'm checking the thickness now, and it's a little thick. Just a little bit, so I could, right now, just roll it a little thinner. But I'm going to go with the slightly thick, because it's so close. I'm so happy with my slab. I'm going to roll with it. Just a touch thicker than I like. But that's alright. I'll still get a nice mug out of this. Right, and we're going right up to the edge of the paper, kind of pressing on it. Alright, look at that. That's just gorgeous. At home. We did it. Okay, now, I don't want any wrinkles in this slab. I am very happy with this slab now. So I'm going to get it off of the fabric. Now if you're stamping, now is the time then to start getting some texture in there. If you're carving, we know we have to let it get harder to do that. It's not going to carve well right now. So I'm going to stamp. Now be careful, this is this wet clay. I put a little too much pressure on my first one. I'm learning it. But luckily I didn't go through the clay. Right, it worked out. If I had a thinner slab, that could have gone bad. So I'm going to be a little more careful with the rest of these. I'm going to add some smaller circles. So you don't have to press very hard at all. Just make sure you get it evenly, even. You'll get good at it after a while. So I'm just doing kind of a fun circular pattern. If I'm drinking coffee in the morning, or having tea in the afternoon, I want to have it upbeat, right? So have a plan so that you're ready to go. Alright, so I've got my pattern almost done. And then I'm going to let this sit out a while. I want it just to get a little bit harder. And you can't let it sit out too long, right? If it dries up, it won't turn into a, we won't be able to go vertical with it. And because my slab is a little on the thick side, it's actually going to be easier to go vertical. So I'm going to end this video here and then talk about going vertical. I'm going to show you one thing though. So what we're going to do next is get into, right, because we want to pick it up to go vertical, so like this. So it's got to hold its shape. So make sure you let it rest a little bit, or I should say dry a little bit, but not too much.